Thank you for joining us this evening. In recent revelations about the process that was used to have AB5 become law has exposed the need for transparency yet again. And as we talk here, how transparency leads to accountability, leads to improvement, it actually works that same way in the legislative process. The way the legislative process works now is completely broken. Activists and special interest groups have undue access, while the average citizen often gets shut out of the process. And one of the things that this COVID experience has taught us is that it's actually not necessary. The technology exists today that there is literally no reason an average citizen can't properly express themselves. What we lack is the political will to be held accountable. Our politicians are so afraid of losing their jobs that they don't do the job we send them to do. We fix that, in part, with transparency. Transparency by itself will not solve anything. There is no such thing as a silver bullet. There is no one thing, or there is no 10-point plan that will solve all of our problems. But with transparency, we can see what's going on. We can start to solve problems. We can start to come up with better solutions. People can start to feel more involved. And then we don't feel so divided. There's no need to be at each other's throat. One of the reasons our politics is so toxic today is because everything becomes political. And the reason everything becomes political is because everything gets shoved through the political process. If something is a law, it by definition becomes political. There's no way around it. Police and politics use the same word. It comes from the same Latin root. There's a reason for this. You can't separate the two. And that is something that a lot of protesters understand but don't quite fully grasp yet. That you can't demand more and more laws and yet somehow think the system can become friendlier. That's not how it works. We do have a problem with authoritarianism, but it doesn't just exist in the White House. It exists in governors' mansions and mayors' houses and city managers' houses all across the country. We have decided that executive orders are now the rule of the day rather than engaging in the normal process. Executive orders are meant to get through a genuine short-term emergency. Long-term emergencies go through the normal political process. They just do it faster. And for that, you need transparency in order for people to trust. People can't trust what they can't see. And this isn't the old days where you could control a narrative long enough to get through it. And then years later, have the news media say, well, that's not what really happened. Now we know. Now all the questions are asked and answered immediately. Issues with data collection are immediately known. You can no longer survive as a politician with dishonesty. So the question becomes, how do we create legislative transparency? How do we create a process that makes things better, that we can actually test on a big level, at the state level, and then we can actually kind of create a best practices to hand down to below? Right? We don't want to create a one-size-fits-all system that imposes something on counties and cities. We want to create a system at the state level that counties and cities can copy the best parts of. And the question is, how do we do that? We can create, say, public calendars for not just the legislatures, for their staff, anybody who talks to any kind of lobbyist. We can make that a public. But that's only a step. That's when I need your help. I need the people of California, and specifically Sacramento. We have all the talent here in Sacramento we need to do this, to accomplish this, to figure out a way to create transparency in the legislative process. It shouldn't fall on one small candidate. This is a community project, because community projects are how we're going to get better. It's how the communities are going to repair themselves. It's how our society is going to improve. Asking for dictates from above don't solve anything. We have 50 years of proof of that. Organic communities do solve problems. We have 200s of years. We have hundreds of years that prove that. All of history proves that communities working together solves problems. So I ask you, if you have ideas on how to create transparency in the legislative process, let's call it the Transparency in Legislation Act, please go to the justforassembly.com and click the contact button and fill out the contact form. Let us know. Send us an email, questions@justforassembly.com. You can comments, questions, they all go there. They all come to me. Send us a Facebook message. If you're willing to help, if you think transparency can help make the world a better place, help us do that. Thank you for your time. Good night, and love everybody.